quickly go through an alternative software if you can't get access to Photoshop at home. Now, this is a nice little software that is quite user-friendly if you use it on a computer. It's called Pixlr. If you use it on a phone, it is available on phone, but it's a lot more limited. So I would advise a laptop or a computer if you're going to use this software. There's a free version, so you can go to Pixlr X, which is the free version. And then you get this sort of entry page, and you can create a new document and set up your document as you would normally. Now I'm just going to do the usual widths and heights for a A4 document. Pop those in there. So it's fairly similar to Photoshop. It is a little bit more limited. There's sort of less that you can do, but it works in a similar way. So I'm going to create that document so you can see I've got that here. Now, you sort of have your toolbar on the left, which is similar to Photoshop, and then you have your layers on the right here. So you can see I've not got anything on there at the moment. So I'm going to go down to here. I'm going to find, so this is really useful if you're working with a photograph or a scan. So you could do this if you'd done some hand drawing or some hand typography or something and scanned it in. Obviously, if you're working with anything that you've done by hand, I would advise that you scan it rather than photograph it, because your photographs are always going to be a little bit dull, or they're going to have shadows in them, or you might not get the angle right. So if you can, definitely scan your stuff. So you see I've got like a scan here. And I should just be able to drag and drop. And I'm going to add it to my current document. And you can see it's obviously dropped it in massive here. So I'm going to go to my move tool and I'm just going to size it down. So again, you've got your move tool like you would normally in Photoshop. I'm going to make that fill the whole page. Now, depending on what you've got, depends on obviously what you want to do. So for this, I might want to put that on a background. So you can see I've got a layer here. And if I go up to, this is sort of like my properties panel, you can see I can put a background in. So I could put a white background in, I could put a coloured background in, so I might put a blue background in or something. And do that. And then you should be able to see if I go here and hide that. So very similar to the little eye icon in Photoshop, you can see you can hide that. You can also click these three dots to get some options. This is when you see things like blend modes. So again, they're exactly the same as the ones in Photoshop. They've got the same sort of names on them. So you can do all your blend mode stuff. You can change the opacity, so it's called transparency on here, but it does the same thing. You can lock a layer, so I could have that locked if I didn't want it to go anywhere, and I can hide or make it visible. And then you can do things like merge your layers, you can duplicate your layers and things like that. So the things are in slightly different places. If you wanted to name the layer, you can do it in there, but the features do still exist. So it has some of the similar features, you just have to sort of look for them. So you can see I've got one there where I've put my design on a coloured background. I could add another layer and then do the same thing again. And then if I hide, so you can see I've changed colour of my background. I could always undo that, and you could always add a shape in the background instead. So you can see if you scroll through these, we've got add element. So that's where you can select shapes. Now, the only thing I will say with this add element button is a lot of this stuff, so things like stickers, are pre-made, and obviously you don't really want to be using anything pre-made just because you're not going to get any marks for it. It's not your own stuff. So with the add element button, you want to be using shapes. You can maybe use borders, but again, they're all pre-made, they're all pre-designed, so you want to avoid anything that's sort of pre-loaded in, just because it's not your stuff. And really what you want to be doing using any software is showing us what you can do with things that you have made and you have created. So the same with this, you don't really want to be going for any of these infographic elements or sticker versions. You really want to be going for just either a line or a geometric shape. And you can see you've got loads of different options. So I'm just going to choose the square. And then you can see it drops it on that layer for me, and I'm just going to make this fill the page. So you could obviously then use that, and then if you go to sort of your properties panel, Now you can change the colour of these things. You see you've got an adjust panel. So you can adjust the colours of image that you set in. So if I hide that and I go to this layer, and I'm just going to hide my background as well. So I could go and do things like hue saturation. So going to that adjust layer, we've got vibrance, we've got saturation, we've got hue. Now temperature is sort of the one that really controls the image, and then you get a little bit more temperature and tint. So it's a little bit similar to that colorize feature in Photoshop, but you can get the same sort of effect going on. So you can start to change the colours up. Now it is a trial and error to try and get the effect you want. So I could go for something like that, and then I might move this layer. Now if I select that layer and I click this button, you'll see it'll move it. So instead of clicking and dragging, you have to use these sort of up and down buttons. And then the same thing again, I could show my pink background and I could look at my layer blend modes, which are in here, and again try different blend modes and things. So it is limited. Obviously I could do some sort of miniature editing. You see we've got a cutout thing here. So you can do a shape cutout, you can do a magic wand cutout, you can draw, you can lasso. So you can sort of work with those sort of things. So I could have a go, and you can see you've got tolerance and things like that and contiguous. So some of this will look a little bit like Photoshop. So there you go, you can see it's rubbed that out. But again, that's not perfect. So it is trial and error. You could do a lasso, you could draw shapes, you could draw a rectangle or a square around the bit you want. And again, you can see it sort of does keep or remove. You could do extract as layer, so you can see it does that, and then it gives us a layer out. So I would always recommend sort of duplicating your layer before you do anything, because it does work slightly differently to Photoshop. You can do things like adding details and things like that. There are sort of built-in filters, but again, I try and avoid those. So really, you just want to be using sort of the add element to add shapes in your background, using maybe your cutout or your crop feature, using those adjustments to do things like hue saturation, and playing around with your layers, panels, and your blend modes. So you can still do some of those key things that you would normally do in Photoshop using this software. In terms of using it as a sort of design software, it is a little bit more limited. But you know, have a go, see how you get on with it, and see what you can make.